the grades that we throw out are not going to be what should pique your interest. The breakdown of a guy that we've already talked about called
Iamaleava
is what you need to pay attention to. So, Cooper Mays, what should people do that want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you, Coop. What down?
Coop here. First down.
Always with the energy. All right, I want to break down in 4 downs, 4 quads. Let's say it's like the old quarter system in college. And I want you to give me an A to F grade on Nico in October, November, December, and January. I'm sorry, the college football playoffs. And we have, so it would be,
September, October, November.
September, which would include the August game, October, November, and the college football playoffs. So let's look back at September. What would you grade Nico purely based off of September? And if you want to, you can grade it on the curve because he was first-year starter, and the column is on offthehooksports.com if you want to read it and follow along. But let me ask you, Will, what would you grade A to F Nico's one game in August and September?
C-.
Okay. Caleb, what about you?
In September?
And the one game in August.
I'm actually going to go B-. I think I go a little hard on him. He did set a record for most passing yards and a half against Chattanooga, guys.
Wow. I could have gotten close to that. All right.
Well, you did, and no one else has in Tennessee history. So
that is true. That is true.
I thought it was a C.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Thanks, Coop. Let's go to November.
What about October?
Why
are you skipping October, Dave?
All right. I drank way too much coffee this morning. All right, let's go to October. I'll start first, and I know I'm being boring because I gave Nico a C for September. I'm going C+ for October.
I'll go C. I think he was average. He would like it even when it went well for Nico. He was an average SEC quarterback. The plays Riley Leonard was making last night, there was not a time this season he could make those plays. And I would say Riley Leonard's an above-average quarterback, not a great quarterback, but an above-average quarterback. I would say a C for September. Or, October.
Yeah.
I'll go.
We have to have a calendar in front. 3 of us have to have a calendar in front of us. I would actually, Caleb, let me interrupt here for a second. I was very close to knocking him down a full letter grade for running out of bounds at the end of the Arkansas game. But instead, I went with a C+ because he did say the ball slipped out of his hands, and I guess I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Caleb?
Well, see, I'm still going C because that Arkansas game is an F- to me because the ball didn't just slip out of his hands there. There was a play before where he fumbled the snap. He legitimately got nervous. The moment was too big for him to lose
his grip was also bad on a strip sack.
Yes, so there was that, and then he didn't play good against Florida, but I moved it all the way up to a C because of the second half against Alabama. Nico played very, very well in the second half against Alabama, and I can't look beyond that. Like, that's your rival. That's Tennessee's biggest win. And they beat them because of how Nico played in the second half of that game.
Here's what's tough. It's tough for me to grade what Nico did because I think there are times Josh Heupel did not play to strengths and did not do the things that Lane Kiffin staff said they had to do for Crompton, right? Where we're going to roll him out, we're going to give him a couple levels, and we're going to give him 3 options of this guy, that guy, or run. And I never thought that Tennessee did anything to help him. There's the Florida game, the last drive, or the first drive of the second half, that drive in overtime are the only 2 times that, do we remember, if anybody watched on television, Jordan Rodgers called taking the access. If they're going to sit in that shell, that 2-deep shell with 3 safeties over the top, then throw dink and dunk them to death and see if you can make a guy miss. And if you don't, well, you got 5 or 6 yards and you're staying on schedule. Tennessee was not disciplined enough, I think, in my mind, from a coaching aspect to do that. So I'm not going to completely crush Nico. So that's why I agree with you that the performance as a whole against Arkansas, but I'm probably a little different than you guys. I'm not looking at the individual. Was this decision good? Was that decision good? I guess I'm kind of looking at what could he do? And to me, at his best, he was average, and what he was capable of handling and they could feed him it never got better than average.
Let me ask you this. Before last season, I would have said Lane Kiffin and Josh Heupel were on par as far as offensive coaches. We're about the same. There wasn't a big difference between the two. But we saw what happened last year with Nico. You mentioned the Crompton thing, and that was coaching mastery. What Lane Kiffin did there for a guy who I know personally had 0 confidence at the time, to make him into a more than serviceable player in the second half of that season was phenomenal. So Lane Kiffin or Josh Heupel, better offensive coach?
I think the better offensive mind is probably Lane. I think the guy I would rather have running a program is Josh Heupel.
Okay.
I agree.
That's pretty good. I can't argue that. Caleb?
What Will just said, and this is something I never attributed to Heupel back in the day, but Dave, it's what you used to say about Steve Spurrier, which was that Steve Spurrier would get way too impatient and would keep trying to chuck it if you keep things in front of you. But no one accused him of not being an offensive genius. So are we saying that like Josh Heupel is more impatient than even a Spurrier is in that regard and trying to hit the big shot?
It could be that, but then there could be the other side of like there were times that I've seen talking to one of Tennessee's basketball coaches, and they kept doing something that didn't work. And I asked, why in the world are you doing this? And he's like, because I watch it in practice 5 days a week, and I know they can do it. So I just need to get them to translate it to the game. So is Heupel seeing them hit on those routes downfield even against that shell in practice, and it was a matter of just trying to get it to translate to the game because they knew how to attack it. They knew they could do it. They just couldn't get their guys to execute it during game time. So I do think he is more rigid than Spurrier. Right, Spurrier was willing to say, well, we're going to run these 15 plays. I want to run them out of 15 sets, and I'll attack you a different way. Heupel didn't do a whole lot of that. Heupel didn't move his receivers a lot. Heupel doesn't you got a skinny receiver like Squirrel White, but you get that guy in motion so that he can get off the line of scrimmage a little cleaner if somebody's on top of him. Chris Brazzell, what does Chris Brazzell do well? He is a Cedric Tillman-like receiver. You throw the ball up to him in single coverage down the sideline, and you let him go make a play. Now, I do think Nico was not comfortable throwing the ball outside. I do. I think that was a Nico thing as much as anything. But so I think Heupel's more rigid than Spurrier was. But I don't know. But Spurrier was also probably more impatient than Spurrier. And I think both are still great. Spurrier, an all-time great offensive mind. If Heupel can win a ring, I'll put him in that category. But I think he's a great offensive mind right now.
I'll just go ahead and tell you, if not for Kelsey Pope, he would have been caught like a 50 balls, 1,000 yards. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to be too hard on Kelsey Pope. 4 Downs brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. Valentine's Day coming up. That's where you should be.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Thank you, Coop. Appreciate that. So we are into November. Your grade for Nico in November.
I will say, again, C.
I know, it's so boring.
Well, there's never a time that I thought it was above average, right?
No, I thought of the idea of the column, and after I wrote it, I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever written.
So really, I'm like, it's because I think there's an individual game where he's an F. I think there's an individual game where he's a B. But when I put all of those together, I get a C or a C minus for each of these months, most likely.
Okay. Caleb, any disagreement?
I'm with you guys on C, but I mean, look, he did throw 4 touchdown passes in the last 2 games of the year. I don't know if you want to count. That was not the same Vanderbilt team that beat Alabama, but that's worth something, right? And I'm just
yeah, great. You're good by Vanderbilt the last game of the year.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. College football playoff grade, just 1 game to grade. So pretty easy. Ohio State, things didn't go so well.
I'll say C minus. I know he was tough as nails out there. I'm not grading you on being tough. I'm grading you about getting the ball to your hands and making sure your team stays on schedule. And he was incapable of doing that. Now, so was Dylan Gabriel, who was a Heisman finalist. So I'm not going to kill him on that, but I'll say C minus.
All right, Caleb.
I'm on your train of C minus too. You know, when I first watched the game, I thought, oh, he does help. He's tough as nails. He was trying to make plays. And then I went back and rewatched it. You realize how many times he got uncomfortable in the pocket when his first read wasn't there? And it very much reminds me of, those NFL quarterbacks that people used to say this about Aaron Rodgers, like, oh, he's so great, he just gets sacked all the time. But then he goes to the Jets and you realize, oh, he was getting sacked all the time because he was holding on to the ball, trying to make a play when he should have just gotten rid of it. That's Aaron Rodgers' whole career. And that felt like Nico right there in that Ohio State game, where he was pressured. A lot of the times he was pressured because of where he stepped in the pocket, not because of the protection.
Final grade, guys. I mean, again, it's an average column. It's a C. I mean, I can't go anywhere else.
I'm at C minus for a final grade. I think he was below average as a whole for the year. He was below average, and he was average in the SEC this year, and one of the worst years for quarterback we've seen in the SEC in probably the last decade. So that's why I'll say he was a C minus.
So I wanted to ask you, Will, on this topic though, like, how concerned should Tennessee be about Nico Iamaleava? Because look, I said he was created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's offense when I watched some highlights of him, and I thought it was like Urban Meyer landing Tim Tebow to run his spread offense. And I was so dead wrong on that. I mean, should they be concerned to a level that George McIntyre could push for a starting job this year?
I don't think so. I think it's fine. I just think that, again, I would rethink the idea of I'm going to pay this quarterback $2-3 million to come be a freshman on my roster. And so by the time he's good, I'm $5 million into paying him money to not be good. I don't know that I would do that if I was a head coach moving forward from now on. And I think none of us knew that. And we're seeing Nico, Arch, Jackson Arnold, everybody from that class, Drew Aller last night. How'd that go? I think that I don't think it's that bad. And we all see what the potential is for Nico. How quickly can you unlock it? His ability to throw the ball to the outside, his decision to throw the ball to the outside first, middle, second. How much is that? When is that going to come into play? How quickly can you unlock him? I don't think there's any reason to freak out about this. But I do think he was what he was last year, which was a slightly below average SEC quarterback for the season. And he's got to get better, especially if you're going to pay him that kind of money. That's why I said I would have let him walk. And he's a great kid, and I know his teammates love him and his teammates respect him. And again, I don't think he had a part to do with any of this give me more money stuff. I think that he kind of got pushed into it, but that doesn't mean that I can't win more games with somebody else. Let me ask you this. This is the question we had with my Tyler Ivins, my co-host, he is a gambling guy, so he watches a lot of college football. Kid at Appalachian State last year, Brendan Sorsby, Nico. Who does Tennessee win more games with? Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati. Both of those other two guys were better than Nico, right? They were it's not a matter of what Nico's ceiling is. His ceiling's higher than all those dudes. But you'd have won more this year if you'd have had those guys.
Wow.
One more.
Go ahead. Sorry. I mean, like Will didn't have anything to do.
I actually don't really. It's snowing.
No, I have to just point this out because one thing I'm coming to is Heupel's talent evaluation, because you're right, he opened $2 million for Nico. Before that, he thought Joe Milton was a better quarterback than Hendon Hooker. And guys, we can go back through history. Josh Heupel's best year at UCF was with the guy Scott Frost brought in. The only quarterback he ever identified that turned out to be good in college was Dylan Gabriel. We got to point that out.
Hendon Hooker was I mean, I know who I'll say it. Kevin Simons, the one that told Jeremy Pruitt to bring in Hendon Hooker. He went and scouted him in the Virginia Tech Wake Forest game and said, go get this guy. And so he got that. But I would also say, I think, you know how when you're really good at something, you can think you're better at it than you really are? So
oh, yes, I do.
Yeah. So I think Josh Heupel's really good at developing quarterbacks. And I think that if you're as good of a player and coach as Heupel has been, then sometimes maybe you think I can develop anybody who has the physical tools and is smart, I can develop them into a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, that's a mistake.
Well, I'm smart, but I don't have the physical tools. All right, Will, have a fantastic day. I don't know if you're going into the office because the snow's coming down, but you'll be online and on the air from 3 to 7. And you guys are killing it. Great show yesterday. I was in the car and heard a bunch of it, and it was really good Wednesday at about I think 4:15.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It usually is. Frankly, their ratings are through the roof.
That's when I was on. That's the boost. All right, buddy. Love you more than you know. I will see you Sunday.
Yeah, sounds good.